Hello, this is Richard Harvey, and I'd like to welcome you to the walkthrough for my latest collaboration with Orchestral tools. Called Monolith, it's an unparalleled collection of very big cinematic drums. Many of these instruments are rare and historic, and we recorded everything in the truly awe-inspiring Lyndhurst Hall at Air Studios in London. Well, the sound of the room is the stuff of legend. Their mics and hardware are to die for, and their engineers are simply world-class. All this results in a detailed and dynamic sound that really puts these unique drums in a recorded environment that brings out the very best in them. Now, we all know that Air Lyndhurst is the destination of choice for some of the most successful movie composers in the world. But any room is potentially only as good as the mics used to record there. So for these drums, we went to town and put Air's unbeatable mic collection through its paces. We set up multiple layers of mics to create 10 positions, including very close mics, a classic Decca tree, and some super wide mics really high up in the choir galleries to provide a great Atmos channel. So the room and the mics are important, but the real stars of this collection are the drums themselves. I've been collecting musical instruments of all kinds for decades now, and all of these drums come from this personal collection. As I mentioned, many of these drums are rare and culturally important, and some others were specially made for this collection. In total, there are 53 drums used here, around 40 of them large and powerful, gathered in a collection that you won't find anywhere else, and certainly not recorded together in this wonderful space. It's a unique take on cinematic percussion, all the power that you'd expect, but with an organic depth and graduated dynamics that can only come from real traditional drum heads. Okay, that's a lot of information. Let's have a listen to the drums. We recorded ensembles as well as selected solo instruments. The ensembles were put together very carefully, with each one designed with a specific task or sound in mind. Importantly, we tuned all the drums sympathetically to each other and carefully voiced them so that they had compatible decay times. All of the large drums, except the large orchestral bass drum, have traditional cowhide heads. You'll find that they don't suffer the problem you tend to get with plastic heads, which is that the sound starts to get rather clicky and thin at really high dynamic levels. Some of the ensembles have up to 14 drums played at the same time. In over 30 years working at Air Studios, this was quite definitely the loudest sound I ever heard in that room. But having said that, these drums can be very agile, tactile, soloistic, and sound really great at low volumes. All of the dynamics are chromatically mapped from quiet to loud with a consistent set of 20 dynamics with left and right hand hits. This is why the playing range is doubled up 1 octave apart. The loudest dynamic is always on G4 and G6 in the higher keyboard range. But we've also put together performance patches. These have a regular velocity mapping because we know some people prefer this. In addition to these, you'll also find some menu patches. They're called menus for a good reason. They give you an overview of the drums with just the essential articulations spread across the key range, so you can browse through and find the sound you're looking for very easily. So now, let's just jump in and listen to perhaps the most powerful ensemble first. That was the Rumbling Air Ensemble, played with hard beaters. It consists of the drums that combine the low-end power with a really strong attack. Each player played 2 drums side by side, except for the mighty Lana drum, which was too large to get any other drum anywhere near it. This was all played and recorded near the back of the hall, which is where they'd naturally be in an orchestral context. Now, we know consistency is important in a collection like this. So we've made sure that the articulations are pretty much the same across all of the different ensembles, as well as the solo instruments. We recorded the single hits, flams, upbeats, crescendos, and other playing techniques as well. Single hits and flams are also mapped chromatically from quiet to loud, starting from C3 upwards. The dynamics patches consist of several lengths of crescendos and diminuendos on C2 and upwards. There are also different kinds of upbeats in a good range of useful tempi. These are mapped out from C3 upwards. And you get different options for beaters for most of the ensembles as well. Hard beaters, soft beaters, as well as played by hand where appropriate. So let's have a listen to the same ensemble, but played with some soft beaters. There are also several ensembles that feature stick recordings as well. This is when the players click their sticks together, or we call them clacks, when both sticks hit the edge of the drum. Here are all of the sticks patches together. Now, let's listen to a selection of the other ensembles found in this category. First, there is the heavy-duty ensemble high. This consists of medium to large drums with very heavy-duty heads. In this case, it's 3 sets of dun-duns, which are the West African drums that are also known as jun-jun or dununs, and 3 Thai klong tats, which are essentially barrel drums, rather like small taikos. In this first example, it is played with hard beaters, then with hands. The next one is our high ensemble. It comprises a good mix of goblet drums, that is to say, fairly small-headed drums carved from a hollowed-out section of tree. These are in fact all African, except for the Thai long drum, which sounds very similar to a large djembe. Now let's move on to the basso tom ensemble. We've coined the term basso tom to describe a bass drum of small to medium size, flipped on its side and used as a tom-tom. We either used kit bass drums from the 1930s that still had their original hide skins, or we sourced new heads for the drums made from new hide. The sizes here range from 20-inch to 28-inch, and here we have them played with hard beaters. Now I'd like to show you around the different mic positions that are on offer in this collection. With 10 of them available, you have the possibility to create a wide range of sonic perspectives and completely customize your own versions of how these great drums should sound. And if you've been fortunate enough to make some live recordings at Air Studios with an orchestral string section, you can simply put the tree mic position up. Your live recordings will match the room sound of your programmed drums perfectly. The same goes for mixing with different libraries, like our Berlin series or the Metropolis Arc series. And importantly, it blends very nicely with the sound of Teldec's studios. Lyndhurst Hall delivers a little more low end and low mids, so it sounds slightly more mellow. Teldec's has a slightly crisper sound with pristine highs. But nonetheless, these libraries will match perfectly. To prove this, here's a short demo of the Monolith drums recorded at Air, playing together with the Berlin Series Orchestra recorded at Teldec's. Listen out for the low-mid heft of the drums, as well as the clear high end in the trombones and strings. Back to the different perspectives you can create with Monolith. Here is an example of the different close and spot microphones. Air's awesome collection of vintage gear really shines out here. Then, moving gradually outwards, you have the room and surround mics. And to finish things up, you have a second tree option. This one is placed a little bit closer to all the drums to give you a more detailed sound without losing the dimension of the room. This is a common practice in live recordings too. All these mic perspectives mean you get a lot of mileage out of these drums. They can deliver pure power, but also a close and intimate subtlety, whatever you need. Carrying on with the different ensembles, there are 4 more that I would love to show you. Here is the Thai Klong Tat ensemble. You may have heard of the Klong Tat already if you know the Sangara library I made with orchestral tools. This is a trio of perfectly matched and rather stunning examples of these classic drums. The African High Ensemble 2 consists of 4 African carved long drums, one of which is made from the branch of a baobab tree, which is a West African tree designed by nature to store water, so they are already barrel-shaped and thus don't need much carving. Some of these drums could be up to 100 years old, with their original head still in place. Perhaps they store the wisdom of the ages. Finally, we have the toms and rotos. This comprises 2 sets, 8 concert toms and 7 rototoms, both ranging from 18-inch to 6-inch in diameter, recorded from high to low. All of these were played with 1 player per set of toms, as you'd expect. So, that concludes our tour of the ensembles. Let's continue with the solo instruments. I talked a little earlier about the drums themselves, and they're really the stars of this collection. Some of the drums are rare antiques, some are custom made, but all of them come from my own collection. Having this massive group of drums all together in one space is a rare opportunity in itself. These aren't drums you can normally access for a recording session, certainly not in this constellation, and not maintained and tuned like these instruments are. Forgive me for saying so, but we believe we put something very special together here, something with so many good options that you can actually curate your own unique library within a library. The solo instruments in the library have the same consistent set of articulations and the same mapping as the ensembles have. So everything you heard about that earlier is also true here. This saves us both some time, I think. Also, we didn't move anything around. The solo drums were recorded in the same positions they were in for the ensemble recordings, so you can layer these very nicely on top of the ensembles or create your own custom ensembles. So let's listen to the first one, the Lana drum. This 48-inch monster of a Thai ceremonial drum carved from solid teak offers a variety of different beater options and playing styles. Here's a short demo played with hands, then a hard beater, then a soft beater. Next up, we have the royal drum. For me, perhaps the star of the collection, from Central Africa. It's around 150 years old, with its original head still in place. It stands over 5 feet tall, and you have to get up on a box or be nearly 7 feet tall to play it comfortably. This has different beater options as well, but to keep this walkthrough short and sweet, here it is with just the hard beaters. Now we get into some African drums. The West African baobab drum, which I described a little earlier, is normally played only with hands. The African diamond drum is a hardwood goblet drum with beautiful diamond shapes carved into the sides, which is played with hands as well, and this is how they sound. Monolith also includes a davul drum. This one has a massive sound that really cuts through, perfect for those moments when you need to go epic. This collection includes 3 sets of dun-duns. They are always made in sets of 3, small, medium and large. This is the middle-sized dun-dun from our beautiful set from Guinea, played in the normal way with sticks. The Thai long drums, known as klong yao in Thailand, combine wonderful pinging, cutting edge with thumping, resonant low end, a bit like a really good djembe, but more so. Here, as with some of the other drums, you have the option of choosing whether the drum is played by hand in the centre or at the rim. Have a listen. You already heard the basso toms ensemble, but you also get them as solo instruments. Bass drums repurposed as tom-toms with hide heads, so they have a more organic and rich sound that never gets thin as you get louder. They are really commanding when played using higher velocities and produce some serious gravitas too. Listen to the basso tom 27-inch played with a hard beater. To round off what was already a massive collection, we handed the samples to our sound designers and asked them to fire up their outboard gear. They delivered a great selection of production-ready patches and creative sound design. You can find them in the folder Processed Instruments. These sounds are all derived from sound sources of the library, so despite some very heavy processing, all of these instruments have an organic edge to them. Okay, a final personal comment from me, if I may. This is not a bunch of rented drums. It's a carefully curated personal collection, further tuned and voiced on the day to ensure really credible ensemble sounds that complement the dreamlike space that is Air Lyndhurst. We also sourced a large array of totally matching sticks and beaters to further enhance the true ensemble sounds. I want to thank the really talented ensemble of players led by the great Dan Ellis and John Prestige, who captured all of the power and detail so wonderfully well, and the whole team who helped get these drums safely to and from Air and set them all up. There's a very great deal to delve into with this library, and I hope that we conveyed a good flavour of what's on offer from these many different drums in this walkthrough. I can promise you that it's an absolute joy to play all these instruments. Like me, I hope you won't want to be without them. I'm very, very pleased and rather proud to be able to share them with you.